Perfect weather for a walk with Father Jeff Walker. All right. Morning, Father.
Good morning, Father.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm so sorry I missed the event last night. I'm glad to hear it was a successful evening.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Wonderful presentations, but you are absolutely missed for sure.
Oh, thanks so much for saying that. That's so kind, you know?
Well, you knew I was brokenhearted when you told me you couldn't be there. Yeah, I expressed that to you then.
You hanging out with Father John Ricardo and Bishop Thomas, I'm sure they're like, oh, where's Father Jeff? I can't get that. All right. Enough of that. Let's only tell the truth on the radio. So earlier this week, I went with some of my college kids to see the movie Dune Part 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is sort of, I don't know, I think that's a pretty popular one right now. It's in the news and such.
Mm-hmm.
And just a really great movie, very much like a cinematic, spectacular thing. It was fun to watch. It was so well shot. It was well acted. And, on the car ride back, I had a car full of college guys, and they started talking about it, and they said, I'm not really sure what the message of that movie was.
Oh,
and I said, that's a good question. Because it talks a lot about religion there. Certainly it's supposed to be sending some kind of message about religion. It's a sci-fi movie, totally fake, totally fiction, but it's definitely trying to send some message. And so on the car ride back, we were sort of teasing out what might that message be. And they said, well, I don't think it's a good message about religion. It really seems to look down on religion, that religion is very manipulative, that religion is very, it's all about power. And then one of the college men pointed out, they said, well, yeah, because there's no God in the Dune universe. I said, well, what a great observation. They tried to have religion without God, and all they were left with was power-hungry people and manipulation. And I said, yeah, that would be religion without God, wouldn't it? And it sort of reminded me, there was a show on, I think, NBC about 6 or 7 years ago called The Good Place. It's supposed to be about what happens after you die. Do you go to the good place or do you go to the bad place? And I don't want to spoil the show, but, the message of that one, you got to stop and think about it and say, well, they're sort of saying it's all the bad place. There really is no, just sort of live your life now because there is no good place. It's all just more of the same. And it occurred to me after watching that show for a couple seasons, trying to figure out, what message is this sending? That there's also no God in the universe of the good place. They're trying to have heaven without God. And so I thought that was a very insightful thing. And I wonder if that's showing up in our media, in our TV, in our movies so much because, well, maybe we're tempted to do that too. Pope Francis talks about that a lot too. He says the church is not an NGO. That's probably one of his most repeated phrases over his papacy, is that this is not just a club with another non-governmental organization that's trying to do good and charitable things. When you try and do church without God, you become just another club. When you try and do Lent without God, we're just on a diet. We're just trying to do some nice things and be nice people. But all of this only makes sense with God. I always think about C.S. Lewis too, because I'm a constant C.S. Lewis guy. He said, the long sad story of human history is man trying to find something other than God that will make him happy. I thought, maybe that is a good message from the good place after all, and a good message from the Dune movie, that without God, what's the point? What are we doing? It all falls apart without God. That's a pretty good message.
I agree.
Wonderful message.
And you have to say that the powers that be, Hollywood and so forth, they're hearing from the people that they want programs that are related to faith. They just don't have the ability to create them because they don't have that. I don't want to make a judgment on all of them. I'm saying historically, they just don't have the ability to bring it forward. But they get that the people want a message that includes faith. So maybe we'll move on to a better place from these starting points.
Yeah, so a couple of the men also recently saw the movie Cabrini, and which was a great depiction of the life of a saintly nun, and pointed out that in the trailers for Dune, there were 2 movies about nuns, but they were horror movies. These are evil nuns. And they said, that's fascinating. People are fascinated by nuns, but without God, you get the message wrong. Without God, these religious mystical features have to turn into something ugly. But with God, it's such a beautiful thing. And you see in Cabrini, a movie about nuns with God, and I guess there's a lot of horror movies that have almost, I would say, blasphemous depictions of nuns, and that's what you get without God. So just such a stark reality. Hollywood can even sense the human heart's desire for these things, but without God, it just doesn't make sense.
You got some pretty insightful students there, Father.
Hey, we try.
Yeah.
Thank you, Father Jeff.
Wonderful
Have a great
walk.
weekend.
You too. Always love those walks with Father Jeff.